What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday, and today we are finally going to get to our wish list. And our wish list, we try to do it annually. I haven't always been good about it, but I wanted to do it this year because I feel like the wish list is getting tighter and tighter, which is fantastic news on a couple of levels. Because it means as the list is getting tighter that we're getting more of what we want, and as we get more of what we want, you know, in theory, we become happier as collectors. I'm not sure if that's actually ever true, but in theory, it sounds nice. Before we get into that, I do want to get into a little bit of housekeeping, not too much. The dummies. Most people got it. A lot of people are still trying to talk to me about storing that gun on those tapes in the legs for tape mode and all this. Listen to me, and we can agree to disagree, and that's fine too, but listen to me very carefully. If those legs were plastic, that gap would have been filled in. They would have found a way to fill that gap. They chose die-cast, and they chose it because Fans Toys has a reputation built and largely upon die-cast. And die-cast is a great thing when used properly, but it's not used properly here because the joints are failing. So it's a twofer. It's a two-part slap. It's a two-piece and a biscuit, as they used to call it in my day. For one, it's unsightly, and for two, it's unsightly because it's die-cast. And the die-cast is actually working against the figure. And I think that's it. I think I've said all I need to say about the acoustic wave set, I think, forever in my life. Which is just in time for me to speak more about the Jansen set. I had a pretty good afterthoughts on Patreon about it that a lot of people hit me up about how much they enjoyed that. It's only, I needed time to sit with that figure. I'm sure we're going to talk about it more. I'm not sure if dummies will do it or what, but I will say this to X-Transbots. I have bought most of X-Transbots pieces. My suggestion, no, not my suggestion. Let me walk that back. My take on X-Transbots at this point is that I tend to enjoy their smaller figures better. Meaning, carbot size or smaller is where I think that they perform at their highest caliber. I'm not sure how their reputation is solely looking at the larger bots. Smaller bots, fantastic. Don't go chasing waterfalls. And then I think that's it. So let's talk about the wish list a little bit. There's a little bit of rules kind of to cover. So the wish list is something that hasn't been announced, right? Sometimes I throw caveats into it because it gets tricky. Like the Predacons from Zeta, it's like they've announced it, but is it coming? I don't know. Or do we have any reason to believe that it's coming, et cetera, et cetera. So there are caveats to it. But the wish list is like, man, this is what I would like to see. Now, what it means is not necessarily see in hand, although I'd love that too, but it also means just give me a reveal. Give me some sort of clue that these things are happening. That's my wish list. And as I've been going back over it for years, it's so funny because a lot of what I've asked for, and I guess that's just not because it's me, it's just because if you ask for enough, eventually you're going to start getting pieces. But it's just interesting to see how the list has kind of evolved and changed over time as stuff has continued to be released. And it says something about the prolific nature of these companies, but it also says something about the vast nature of this franchise and just how many figures and characters there are, and to kind of check all those boxes is very, very challenging, but we are getting pretty close, and hopefully this list will do it justice. I've made some alterations from years past because I don't have the same drive for some of the figures as I have in the past, or characters, and brought some other characters back, and just stuff that I would like to see. And I also try to list the companies that I would like to see make them, because I do think that that's important. I don't necessarily want this company to tackle this type of character. I'm, much rather prefer the opposite in some cases, or, tweak it a bit. And that's all I got. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the list. We're going to count down our top 10, all right? Let's get started. So with the recent reveals, we can start at number 10, and somebody can come back on the list. Oh, Broadside Returns. Now that the checklist is getting a little tighter, characters that I think had a minimal impact as far as the show went, specifically as far as my childhood memories went, and even the toy representations have gone through the years, characters like Broadside often sit by the sidelines. But with us getting more stuff, they can get in the game. So Broadside Returns to my list. And honestly, I would like to see Fans Toys or MMC probably do this, but I have to say, I wouldn't be mad to see Transform Element get in the game and start handling some of these bigger characters. They tend to do fairly well with big characters. Their Prime was a solid made unit. I wouldn't mind seeing them throw their hat in the ring. Number 9, another return. We get Sandstorm. As of yet, we've only really got the Unique Toys version, which left an awful lot to be desired, to be fair, even for its day. And unfortunately, it has only aged worse and worse. And I say that as a Unique Toys fan. So for a character like this, it would be nice to get some sort of resurgence, some sort of revitalization, and have another company throw their hat in the ring. I honestly don't really care who makes this. And to be fair, I don't really care who makes Broadside either. I would prefer probably the same companies that did Broadside to do Sandstorm, but I'd also be open to different options. And specifically with Broadside, I know it's a bit out of their wheelhouse
as far as their general approach, but I wouldn't be mad to see Fans Hobby take on Broadside. They handle big, beefy bots fairly well, so to speak. But yeah, Sandstorm can now re-enter the list. Number 8, speaking of Fans Hobby, Decepticon Headmaster Juniors. Horrible, Fangry, etc. A lot of them have been constant kind of jokes here on my channel as to like the characters that we'll never get. But with a lot of these Autobot Headmaster Juniors getting made, I really would like to see some Decepticon action to go along with them. And I 100% would want Fans Hobby to do it. Since they kind of already have carved out that lane and have a general sort of aesthetic and style going, it only makes sense for it to kind of continue and stay consistent. So I'd like to see these guys get a little action these days as well. Number 7, I think it's time to start considering a masterpiece scaled set of Seacons. I haven't really considered this in the past, mainly because of the amount of bots that we've needed to get out, but also because I didn't think it was a realistic expectation. But now that we have the train set, I feel like the sky is kind of the limit in regard to the potential for characters like this. And of course, I would like to see Zeta do it, or Moon Studios, or whatever this is, this situation. As long as this Raiden ends up strong from Moon Studios, I'd be down to see them continue with different combiner options. Number 6, the Autobot and Decepticon clones. I feel like there's a lot of retooling that can be utilized here. I feel like there's a lot of good business sense that can be reutilized here. There's a lot of potential to make a good product and simultaneously make a good profit. Obviously, the engineering would have to be different, but I think a lot of the sculpt work could remain the same. As far as who would do them, I'm open for 2 different options. Fans Hobby, because it's kind of close to their wheelhouse, but I think the company that I would really like to see tackle them is X-Transbots. I think X-Transbots does extremely well with the smaller figures, and we get that premium paint and materials to go along with it, so that would be my preference. I think characters like this are nice to have on a shelf because they don't take up a whole lot of space, but spice it up a bit. Number 4, Target Masters. Still want to see some Target Masters. The Headmasters I kind of put in this section as well, although the Make Toys ones have been announced and then they were kind of revitalized years ago. We haven't heard any rumblings about them since, so I'm a bit disheartened and discouraged that they'll actually see the light of day. But Target Masters and Headmasters for the Autobots are high up on my list, high up on my list of priorities. There's been complementary characters already created. It's time to kind of flesh these out and finish this off. My number 3 is a tie with 2 sets, but it's basically the same kind of stuff. I'd like to see MMC announce the rest of the tapes. Combiner Decepticon tapes, the Combiner Autobot tapes, as well as Overkill and Slugfest for the Decepticons. I don't want anybody but MMC to do this. MMC has a format and a formula that works. They look fantastic. It's consistent, and I think they're going to be surprised with the success of their Autobot tapes as soon as they get out, and hopefully be re-inspired and re-motivated to continue with these tapes, and hopefully we can see some sort of recognition of the future sets. My number 2 and my number 1 shouldn't come to anybody as any surprise. My number 2, Technobots. We are reining and closing in on the last set of combiners for the masterpiece scale. We have Stunicons, we have Aerialbots, we have Combaticons. We have more Devastators than you can shake a stick at. Granted, it's pretty much only made by one company, but more decos than you would ever need. It's time to finish the combiners off, and all we need is one announcement, and we can have a full set of Autobot combiners, and that announcement is Computron. It's time. It's numero uno on my priority list, and I'd love to see really anybody between MMC, X-Transbots, or Fans Toys if they can figure out how to complete a combiner to tackle it. Which brings us to our number 1, which also should come as no surprise, and that's the Terracons, for the same exact reason with the same exact companies. I left Predaking off the list specifically because I'm still holding out hope that we're going to get that Zeta one that was announced. But if that comes to fruition and we get Terracons, once again, at least we're in a place where the season 1, 2, and 3 combiners are complete. What more could you ask for? The only thing I don't want to see regarding these combiners is every company doing the exact same one. Nothing discourages, disenfranchises, drains, and bleeds the fandom dry like 2 to 3 companies doing the exact same combiner every time. Switch it up. Do us a favor and we'll do you a favor. And that's my list for 2022.
Imagine if we got those, man. Imagine what your shelves would look like. I mean, you'd basically be done. There'd be a couple little odds and ends pieces here, you know, some really ridiculously large ones, Skylinks and stuff like that. But like, just imagine how close that would put you. Wow. Makes me excited. And I am pretty excited about this year in general, only because we've got a couple of releases so far, and I've even got a couple of releases so far, and they've all been pretty good. So like, you know, that makes me, it re-energizes me, right? It charges my battery. It makes me excited. Next week, I believe we're going to tackle BotCon's return. That's my tentative plan. unless something crazy pops up during the week, there's a lot to talk about there. And then I have some stuff planned for the future as well, but more on that later. So yeah, hope your year is off to a good start. Hope January's been good to you. Let's get ready for February. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care. Patreon Zoom meeting is tomorrow, I think.